Hello everyone, welcome to rs&ab. My name is Ralph. I was doing this build and then I remembered that I still have to do some IT infrastructure related stuff for the weekend. And I thought, why not make a fun video out of it? You'll see. Let me clean this up and see you then. Today I'm going to migrate the hardware of a storage server into a new case. This previously offsite storage server into this rack case. Yeah, that would be boring. So I will be building a second identical file server, this time as a backup server, into this other rack case. Not enough? I get it. So I'll be moving the hardware from this rack server into this case and from the lower rack server into its little twin case. Still not enough? Then let's make this a challenge. I'm gonna give myself 1 hour to do everything. Just let me prep first. While my past self suffers, and believe me, I did, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about IT infrastructures and how they've developed in the past 20 odd years, or maybe longer. I'll be sharing about my own experience in the industry and won't be looking at large enterprise deployments because I don't have any experience there. Let's have a look at some history first. Servers, or back then mainframes, have been around for a very long time by now and are nothing more than some electronic computer offering some time of service. And back then, when everything started, these were single task machines. You had to reserve a time slot for using one of these mainframes and fed the device an absolutely, vitally important, infinitely complicated calculation on some data you may have collected in a friend's backyard. This is also where the word terminal in computing comes from. The terminal was a device where you could interface with some server to provide it with input and receive some output. Once you provided the mainframe with your calculation and its data using that terminal, the mainframe would chug along performing your calculation and you would have to wait until you get the result. Finally, although the time slot proved to be very popular, it was often used in conjunction with some kind of queue system, where you wrote down your calculation and data and gave it to a clerk or something. Once your task was done, you were contacted and could pick up your results. According to some people I've spoken to, the queue system was actually introduced due to people breaking the machine with badly written programs. That way, professionals could take over. They then input your calculation and its data, checking it beforehand and keeping that mainframe in working order. Let's skip forward to the beginning of the 2000s, and the environment has changed quite a bit. No longer were there large single-task mainframes, but multiple-user, multiple-task systems, often using modern architecture similar to the PCs people had at home. These servers offered, well, one or more different services to its user base. Back then, small or medium businesses had one or more of these systems to perform the desired tasks, often having one server doing many different things at the same time. For example, it was one single machine offering network printing, internet proxy, and sometimes even serving web pages. You have to remember, or better said, know, that in those days systems mostly had a single core, and although there were servers with more than one CPU, these had the same amount of cores as they had sockets and, most importantly, were really expensive to buy and operate. Never mind that many programs and even operating systems were unable to run on more than one core. The main problem that arose from having one machine to do many tasks is the old jack of all trades is a master of none, in addition to creating a whole lot of issues by itself. Let's look at the latter first. Modern computers typically, they kind of run some type of operating system, which manages processes, memory, and I/O, among other things. Further, many programs have to communicate with a central component of the operating system or kernel, which performs those management tasks. On top of that, pun intended, there may be some software component that has to communicate with another to do its job. Add to this that there are often many different variants or versions of those software components, each expecting some version of another software component, while others expect a different one. Down we go the rabbit hole. Add to this further that the server doesn't just have one task to perform, and the possibility of running into software incompatibility rises exponentially with the amount of tasks assigned to that single system. And if the system encounters such a scenario, one software not working with another, it's more than likely that the system won't be able to perform the new tasks, as well as not being able to do what it was doing before. There are many other problems of having a jack of all trades server, but discussing all of them would really take way too long for this video. With AMD releasing the Athlon 64 and their AMD 64 64-bit instruction sets, x86 Silicon could address more than 4 gigs of RAM for the first time. Further, in 2005, Intel introduced hardware-assisted virtualization with VTX, and AMD followed suit with AMD V in 2006. Also in 2005, AMD and Intel brought multi-core processors to the masses with their new Athlon 64X2 and the very beloved Pentium D line of processors. Now, add 2 to 3 years for the industry to adapt, and around the 2010s, commodity x86 hardware was finally set up to compete in the server market. Again, these aren't all the facts, but a small resume of different technologies coming together to create a specific scenario where something that wasn't possible before now was. Now, back to the future, the present, let's skip to the 2020s and look at what has changed and how the aforementioned problems were engaged before finally explaining what the servers my past self is building right now will be used for. Okay, let's summarize. Many of the problems of the first generation of home to medium business servers stem from having everything running on the same hardware and on the same OS. The former issue of everything running on the same hardware cannot really be solved without spending some more money on new hardware, but the latter issue of everything inside the same software environment can, and this is where virtualization comes into place. Having large amounts of comparatively cheap memory, many cores, and hardware acceleration for running virtual computers inside the computer, or VMs, on the same system, and the playground's ready. Now, a specialized operating system dedicated solely to play host to a bunch of VMs is employed, and each task or set of tasks is then performed on a dedicated VM. The principle for this is that each of those machines only runs the minimal software necessary to perform its task, while at the same time being as self-contained as possible. Sometimes this contradicts itself, but you can get it to work. Of course, you'll have some overhead, and each of these machines require its own resources, including some type of virtual storage, and the guiding principle of one task per machine, be that physical or virtual, plays a role in this case as well. And now we get to the servers I'm building right now, or I was building but showing you now. One will be used as a storage server, where the virtual storage will be hosted, and the second one as a backup server, where all images of that storage is backed up. Okay, that's enough talk. Let's get back to Past Ralph and see how he has done in the challenge. Well, I have failed. Amazing. Anyway, it took 7 more minutes than we thought than I had planned initially, but we have 2 file servers, 2 new offsite file servers. I'm gonna test these systems today and a little bit tomorrow and report back to you once everything's done. And yeah, some time has passed since we've built the 4 servers, and by now these have been thoroughly tested. The rack units are already in the data center, performing their storage and backup duties respectively. I only managed to misconnect the power LED on one of them. Not bad, I think. I hope you liked this video and aren't as bummed out as I apparently was by me not achieving my time goal. I wouldn't hold it against you though. Anyway, if you enjoyed the vid, please consider leaving a like. Subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any of our future content, and hit that notification bell. My name is Ralph. I hope to see you next time here at X1E.